I love when coaches, consultants, and professional service providers want to do big things in their business. They want to rise to the top and influence their market and the world around them. They want to have a greater impact and make a more lucrative income. Well, if this is you, welcome to Expert in You podcast, the show where I interview other experts and coaches, consultants, so that they can share their success strategies with you. We're going to talk about marketing and how to close more sales, how to get more premium clients, and how to really build your visibility in the market and scale your business like a boss. If this is you, welcome to the show. I want to ask you to subscribe and hit the notification bell right now so you don't miss one episode. Grab your coffee and buckle up because we are ready to give it all to you to help you become the expert and get paid as the expert that you are. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Expert in You podcast. I'm your host, Carden, and I can't wait for you to hear from my guests this week. In fact, when I did a YouTube video, promoted him on my YouTube video because he's phenomenal and he has a phenomenal book. We're going to talk all about that. But Patrick Kagan, welcome to my show.
Thank you, Ann. I'm so glad to be here. I love the name of your show, Expert in You, the whole concept.
There's a strategy behind that.
I love it. Thanks.
I only interview experts. That's right. So Patrick is an international renowned author, podcast host, and a professional coach. He works a lot in the corporate space and helping with sales teams and doing sales. And we're going to talk about all of that today. But the other thing about Patrick that a lot of people may not know, and I didn't know this for a while, is that he's also a 30-year veteran. So Patrick, I'm going to publicly thank you for your service.
You're welcome. Proud to serve, and thank you for your appreciation.
Well, I can't wait to dive in. We have so much to talk about. His big thing is sell the difference. And this is near and dear to my heart because it is one of the things I help my clients do as well. So what does that mean, Patrick? What does sell the difference mean? And how did you even get into this?
Yeah. A lot of really good unpacking with that question for sure. How I got into it was really paying close attention to the language of my clients. And in the 30 years of being in the industry, I've been in about 5 different industries. They're all unique industries. Hewlett-Packard for technology, Procter & Gamble for consumer goods, a national or an international company that makes industrial maintenance products, print media, advertising media. And what I noticed was all of my clients, as I moved through different career paths, would bring me with them to their organization. So even when I switched industries entirely, I would have contacts reach back to me and say, hey, Pat, if you could just get involved with Ann over here, she's my coworker, but if you can do for her what you did for me, we're going to be in great shape.
Oh my gosh. Everybody's dream for that.
Everybody's dream.
Right?
And I was naive to the fact of what was it that was happening to me. So I started asking them questions and paying attention to what they said. And what was coming out of this was that, well, you're not like any other salesperson we've had. We don't even think of you as a salesperson, and you're really different. And you really know how to differentiate yourself. And I kept hearing the word differentiation. And I started realizing how much customers expect and value being different in the marketplace. So Sell the Difference is the title of the book, but the very first sentence in my book is stop selling. And I mean, in the traditional sense of trying to sell something, trying to actively make something happen. Your job as a salesperson is to put yourself in the shoes of the person in procurement, the buyer, to think from their side. And if you don't have that experience, you need to get close to them and you need to listen to them and you need to figure out what is their pain points. What are they going through? So what I experienced was a blessing because I really realized for myself, what I had created for myself was this category of one. In their mind, I was the one. I have to have you in my organization, even if it's not my area of responsibility. So that's where this all began is, there's a way to pay this forward with future generations by writing a book about it, by building a consulting business around that. And so you mentioned I'm a podcaster. I've got 10 seasons of my podcast. And so I try to have something that everybody, it's approachable for everybody. Some folks, they're driving, they're stuck in traffic. They want a really good idea. They can listen to the podcast. That's a free resource. They may go on the high end and say, I'm going to hire you for consulting for the whole year for my whole organization or for myself. Or they want something in the middle. I want a playbook. I want to know how to do it, and I want to read it at my own convenience, or I want to listen to it in an audiobook. So I've got something for everybody that's going to help them create their own category of one as well.
I love that. And I don't even remember if we talked about category of one, because I use that language all the time.
Oh, really?
And so, yeah, the fact that you brought that up as well.
Well, I think there's so many similarities in what you do for a living and what I think about every day. So we could have talked about it, but it's the right language. It's the inner speak. It's the goal you're after. To me, it's when I think of that, I think of being in a waiting room full of salespeople, and when the client opens the door, they're all gone and I'm the only one there. And the opposite effect of that, when you're not good at differentiating, then you live in a world of what I call comparability versus distinguishability. Comparability is you sound like everybody else. And so what do clients do when they open that waiting room door? They hit mute, and none of you can be heard because they're so tired of hearing the same old, same old.
Yes.
And that's comparability. And many times in sales, in leadership, in business, we learn from modeled behavior. Someone showed us how to do it, and it could be the wrong way. It could be exactly saying what my competition does. I do the same thing, only cheaper, faster, better, whatever their thing is. And people don't hear that. That's not distinguishability. And distinguishability is really something, you recognize it. Think of trust, or think of loyalty or kindness or sincerity. Nobody has to say, hey, I'm a kind person. You'll know when you're with them that they're kind.
Right.
And so it's that. Differentiation is really an action or a non-action that you take in the world. It's not what you say.
Oh, that's great. I cannot wait to read your book. And here's the thing, it's not a small book either, is it? It's a fairly good sized book, but it really, like you said, it's a playbook. It is. It's
a playbook. And it was interesting because I had one of the readers, she called me and she wanted to talk about one of the sections that really resonated with her. And it's amazing what resonates, what sentence will resonate with everybody. And I said, okay, well, let's talk about it. She goes, well, hold on. I have to run to my car because it's in my car. I got some Post-its, some stickies, and some notes in the corners. And I'm like, you are the embodiment of my reader. They should annotate. They should be using this. And it should be something you work with. So I have some really good tools inside the book. And even with the audiobook, you can download those tools that help you visually see. So for instance, I have something called the differentiation curve. And I put it together, not because it's scientifically hard to grasp, but sometimes, like, I learn visually. I like to see a picture, and it compares the sales perspective compared to the client's perspective. And you can see where you're far apart and what's happening and how easy it is to mudslide back to a bad situation. And it also gives strategies on how to make that mudslide never happen. So there's some really cool, fun, interactive things. And the nice thing about how I differentiate is I take the phone calls with my readers and I help them through this. And that's just part of the fun of writing a book like this, is that I get to know what they're going through and I get to hear about different industries.
Oh, I love it. Yes. So you can get his book, Sell the Difference, on his website. And we'll give that link and everything with the show notes. So, okay, keep going, Patrick.
Perfect. So I mean, the whole idea too, with where did this come from and where can it go? I built the book and I built the consulting business and even my approach with individuals when they're trying to get their own category one. The 4 disciplines of differentiation is what I call it. Mm-hmm. And they're real simple. The first is that you need to hate your pain so much on the inside that you do something positive on the outside about it. And this happens.
Good. Oh my gosh, that's a gold nugget. I got to write it down.
You can write it down. You'll find this, though, that if people don't hate their pain enough, they may be aware they have pain, but they're willing to put up with it.
They won't take action.
They have to be ready, they have to be willing, and they have to be able. If they don't have all 3, they're never going to go anywhere. So here's a great story about hate your pain so much on the inside, you do something on the outside. When putting together this book, I have a lot of friends who are also veterans of the military like myself. And I got to talk to them about the concepts of this, about hate your pain. And a couple of conversations had to do with being prisoners of war. Mm-hmm. And one of the mindsets was that I'm a prisoner of war And I have this hope in my mind. I hope to see my family again. I hope to someday see my grandchildren. I hope to see my friends again. All this, I hope to be back on the softball team in the office, whatever it might be. Hope will keep you alive. Hope will keep you going. So you sit still, you get under the radar, and you do your time. Mm-hmm. And hope can keep you in a bad situation for a long period of time. And the mindset's not wrong. It's a way to survive. The other mindset was, I hate this POW camp so much. I'm willing to do anything to get out of here and break free. That has its risks as well. But it did solidify or crystallize in my mind the idea of how much, whose threshold are you talking to when you talk about hating your pain? There's those that said, I'll do anything to escape. And there's those that said, listen, I'll do anything to get back. Mm-hmm. And both are correct mindsets. So you have to understand that when you're working with somebody. And the same thing happens with a salesperson or a sales leader. The sales leader, you have to hate missing your number quarterly so much that you're willing to do something positive. It doesn't mean go fire everybody. And it doesn't mean that you stop having meetings. It means take a look at what is it you hate? What is the pain point? And then how do we fix it? So that's the first discipline. The second is you have to inspect what you expect. So if you inspect that you are stuck in a bad situation and you expect to be in a better situation, meaning sales will improve next quarter. Okay, what are the steps you need to take between inspect and expect? And the more steps there are, the longer it takes, that's okay. That means you can break it into baby steps and have little milestones along the way. But if you never stop to say, am I doing what I say I want to have happen, then you'll never get there. It's very easy to say, I want to make 3 times more the income I make right now. But if you do nothing about that, if you don't
Those are just words, aren't they?
Just words. So when people come to you, Ann, and they say, I want to build $50,000 client base in my business, and they never take one of your classes, they don't read your book, they don't do anything different, the next time you see them, they shouldn't expect that things have changed just because time has passed.
Patrick, it happens all the time.
All the time. Exactly.
All the time. Yes.
The people who are in the most pain and want to do something about it and then have an expectation and they inspect themselves, but better yet, they hire a coach or they have somebody objective who looks at them. So I always say, seek outside help. And what I don't mean is this. I do like the idea of finding like-minded people to help with brainstorming and strategy and things like that. But if you find like-minded people to lick your wounds with you, then you're never going to improve. So find someone who will challenge your thought, not challenge you. And when thoughts get challenged, creativity happens and great new things appear.
Yes.
Inspect what you expect. My third discipline is that you have to practice this daily. And the reason is differentiation is not a normal instinct. We tend to want to, as a human race, assimilate. We want to blend in. We want to find the group that we belong to. Think about if you ever, as a child, changed schools. The worst thing was being the new kid. You want to find a place to fit in. When you join a team, you all get a uniform. There's uniformity. Right? So differentiation is something that you, and I still to this day, have to practice daily. I always preach that most people treat their cell phones better than they treat themselves. And that concept of never letting yourself charge down, you wouldn't let your cell phone charge. You probably have 3 chargers, one in your car, one by your bed.
Never let it go dead, right?
Exactly. So I used to find myself in the habit, I'd wake up and I'd look at my cell phone. Why? Because my calendar is there and people have scheduled appointments with me and I've got things to do and I've got to get my head organized. And I started my day in the same pattern. Well, same is not differentiating. You can't manage to do things better if you can't manage to do things different. So I started this practice of before my feet hit the ground and before I start my day, there's this internal mantra and meditation that I focus on, taking a deep breath, slowing my mind. The phone will still be there when I pick it up. What is it I plan to do differently today? Who will I interact with differently? How will I measure that differentiation has occurred in my day? And I ask myself those questions and I kind of go through that and it helps. It helps put it at the forefront of my day so that, okay, how will I do something different? So it might be something as simple as instead of thinking about what I have going on my day, I noticed that my daughter has her lunch packed to go off. She's studying her master's. And so I write a little note of encouragement on her napkin and put it inside of her lunch. That's something that's great. That's a little nice thing. But the joy it brings her, the response I get back, and it was stopping to think about somebody else as opposed to myself. It's just little things like that that can make a difference. And then finally, the fourth discipline is to practice patience, because just like I talked about with the sales and the buying differentiation curve, mudslides can happen. Differentiation is not a natural thing. It's kind of like allergies. You don't build a resistance to allergies. You just get weaker from those things that make you allergic. Well, differentiation doesn't become a permanent way. So you got to be patient with yourself. You're going to make mistakes, but 30% better at differentiating this week is better than 100% of nothing the week before.
Right.
And so this is the whole idea where outside help, like reading a book, listening to a podcast, talking to a coach, these things can help keep you on that path so that as you get better at differentiation, you realize that the power of differentiation is always outside of your grasp, but you've come so far. It's like yoga. Yoga is called the practice of yoga, not the perfection of yoga. So I do yoga quite a bit. And I started with the intention of, I want to have a looser back so I can golf better. And I finished with a whole different place where I love yoga for all the different reasons.
It took you to a new place.
Took me to a new place, and I never will perfect it. But that's the beauty of it. You're never supposed to perfect it.
Oh, it sounds like entrepreneurship, doesn't it?
It does. It sounds like entrepreneurship.
Never perfect it. I tell my clients that all the time. Look, this is a process. Learn to love this. If you don't love the process, you won't love entrepreneurship. Yeah. Because there are wins and there are not wins, right? So
right. Yeah. I just put out a blog. The blog is called Why is Your Why Your Why? Because people like to say, what's your why? And I always say, well, how long has your why been your why? Because a lot of times people will confuse frustration with a job for I'm going to quit and start my own business. I'm like, whoa, that's temporary. And then why is it your why is a really important thing, because the shine will wear off and you have to think you're going to sustain it for a long period of time.
Right. Oh my gosh, so good. This is such good stuff. Thank you so much for sharing those. I love them. So I want to dive into a couple of things that we wanted to talk about. And you and I are both on the same page with this all the time, but tactical things versus strategic. So let's dive into that. And we could probably do a whole show around that, Patrick.
But yeah, you could.
Let's dive into that, because so many people are out there. Entrepreneurs are out there. And even people that have been in business for years and years, everything's tactical. There's no strategy behind what they're doing. So share your thoughts on that.
Well, that's what you said is exactly true. And the reason is it's human nature. We have a bias towards action. As humans, we have a bias towards action. So you think about, have you ever yourself had a to-do list, a list that you cross things off? Have you ever been in an organization where they say sales are down? Let's have a sales contest. Let's track sales calls. Let's track proposals. Let's do the sales math. Let's have more meetings. These are tactical things. Right. So, and that's a natural thing. And it's not natural. And I talk about this actually in the book, that, you need to plan in advance. What does an ideal customer look like? That's a very strategic conversation. So when I do this with people, I say, tell me about your top customers. And they'll give me a list of the top 5 spenders with their company. And we'll go through that. And then after the day has passed, at the end of the day, I'll say, hey, I want to do one more thing. Let's talk about the top characteristics you look for in the people you do business with. And they'll list these character qualities: kindness, sincerity, open-minded, equitable, that type of thing. And then I say, now, when you think of the people who work at these organizations you listed, do they have those criteria? And a lot of times they say, no, take them off. So strategically, this is something a company should be doing on a regular basis. Individuals should be doing on a regular basis. And the reason you do that is this: you say, Ann says, I want to make more money and have more valuable customers. Okay, Ann, where do you spend your time each day? And you'll tell me where you spend your time, probably with people who you can easily get to or who spend with you on a regular basis. But they might shop you out in a heartbeat and send their business elsewhere because someone took them to a better lunch or did something better for them. And that might not be who you ideally do business with. So tactically, you spend time where you're most comfortable and you get the most, but strategically, you need to be elsewhere. So spending your time. So I look at it like this. If you think about strategy, it's where you want to go. And you think about tactics, that's how you get there. So Ann and I are going to go to Florida. That's our strategy. We're going to go to Florida. We're going to start in Chicago where I live. Okay, Ann, how do we get there? So Ann says, well, we could walk we could run, we could take a bus, we could take a train, we could drive, we could take an airplane. Oh, those are all tactics. So now we can analyze, we could subdivide that into strategies based on those tactics. But we might conclude strategically, it's best for us to drive. We have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to do. So we'll be in a car where we can stop when we need to. And so strategically, that tactic makes sense. So we take off on our trip. During the trip, I'm driving and Ann puts a blindfold on me. Okay, that changes everything, or does it? We still have to go to Florida. That's our strategy. But driving faster, turning left, turning right, putting the brakes on, none of that makes sense. The tactics have to change, even though the strategy is still in place. So many times when in business, you translate this to a business lesson, sales are down. Oh, let's have a contest. Let's create a newsletter. Let's put charts on the wall. We get more tactical thinking. We're strategic. We have checklists for number of calls we've made, but it's not quality. So that's the time to become more strategic. It's the same analogy when people say, when business is down, you should advertise more. And people say, well, I can't advertise more until business is back up. So you have to have the balance. You have to say strategy has to become part of my DNA. And that's a differentiator right there, by the way.
And you know what? Oh my gosh. First of all, it's such a great way to position strategy and tactics. The way you use that, is it said like that in your book too?
Yeah, well? It is. It is.
Yeah, such a great example. But you know, the other thing that I absolutely love that we talked about is with tactical, or the way I think of it, tactical is a very short-term thing. It's something that you're doing. I see this with people in their marketing all the time. Because everything's tactical, it's very short term. A lot of times it's even a short gain, like a contest, right? Yeah. That's short gain. And then once that contest is over, everything goes back to the way it was. Yep. So many people don't. And so strategy is thinking out longer. It's in most cases, not always, but in most cases, you're thinking obviously at the end goal. What is the end goal? And then reverse engineer. But I look at strategy as a longer approach to your success in whatever that is, and whatever you're trying to accomplish.
No, you're exactly right. And my greatest example of that would be in the military. I was in the infantry. So we were foot soldiers. We were battling on the front lines. And so we would have, I was kind of like middle management. So I was part of the planning of these battles and then part of the implementation of those battles. So understanding the plan and then carrying out the mission. And it might be, go take that hill. But taking that hill is like one pawn moving on the chessboard of a big chessboard. And that hill is part of many hills and many battles and many hopeful outcomes. But that failure to take that hill makes the whole board collapse. So the best way to challenge, if you're doing something tactical or strategic, is have an enemy shooting at you who also has their own strategy in place. They don't know what your plan is. It's like professional sports. There's a game plan. And then when everything starts happening and things start falling apart, do you change your game plan, or do you hurt? Oh no. Yeah, you have to stick to your game plan, and you have to, so there is adapt and react. But the whole idea is that you have to make time, and you have to not confuse tactics for strategy. And most people, they do. You'll see people, oh yeah, I got my to-do list. I got my 10 things crossed off. And it's like, yeah, that's okay, but that's tactic. And was that a good tactic? I just talked to a CEO. Their company is struggling for sales. They've been struggling. They know they should get some outside help. They know they need some help in hiring. But the answer was to have a contest, and then the CEO came out of their office and sat down at the desk amongst the salespeople and began calling prospects. And the CEO believed that was a great way to model what should be done. And I said, let me ask you a question. I want you to think of it differently. You think of the chaos you might have created, the messages you left, the people you got a hold of. Their expectation is, wow, the CEO just called me. Do you really have the time to commit to the follow-up that happens after you make that call? No, I don't. So what happens to your sales? Are you undoing it? Are you creating a different reputation? Are you really showing the salespeople you believe in them, or are you showing them that you don't believe in them? Wow, things I hadn't thought of. I'm like, yes, but I appreciate your energy. Now let's redirect that and look at something more strategic as opposed to tactical.
The power of an expert right there.
Well, it's like asking your kids to do the dishes and then you can't stand what they're doing. So you push them out of the way and you do it.
Right.
Guess
Yeah.
who's doing the dishes from now on?
Yeah. No, I really love it. And I love the real world ideas and things stories that you brought into that. And it's no different than if somebody watches this podcast and they say, oh my gosh, so I learned from Patrick that I need to sell the difference. And then they go out there to do that. But let's face it, there's more to the strategy, right? There's more to it than that. So,
well, I had somebody say to me, they boiled down everything I do to, differentiation. That's like your value proposition.
Yes.
And I said, that's a great understanding of it. I said, that's like saying your skin is your DNA. I'm like, your DNA comprises everything you're made of. So the skin, it's in your skin.
Right.
But value proposition is, again, sometimes learned from model behavior. You could learn the wrong thing, but it's usually what you're saying in a sales presentation or a client interaction. And value proposition is part of a proposition. Differentiation is something you do. So if the world couldn't hear you, can you demonstrate your value? Do they experience your value? And that's the type of thing, like I said, where it's like, trust, loyalty, kindness, sincerity. Mm-hmm. I can demonstrate that without saying a word. And the thing about words, people will smile at you and lie to your face, but their actions tell you what their true colors are. That's what differentiation is. I went through this when I did branding. You see my logo, and my theory is you brand for what you stand for. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people talk to me about how I represented balance and the interaction and yoga is a big part of my life and yin and yang. I'm like, what? There's a way to get that into my brand. And I went back and did a rebranding of everything because it's literally everything speaks, and whatever speaks creates culture and creates environment. So I want my logo to speak for me. But if I ever get tongue-tied in a meeting and someone asks me, why should we do business with you? I could look at my logo and it's going to remind me. It's that anchor of what it is that makes me different or my organization different. And it doesn't have to be 100 things. The cool thing about differentiation is that you're going to have that one thing that you do or the one thing you don't do that separates you from the pack. And then you just get better and better at that. And that's, right. I mean, look at, when I look at your background, everything speaks. Guess what, Ann is an expert in you. Mm-hmm. That's clear to me that you are an expert in you. And I feel comfortable.
I want to live that. I also try to live that in my brand.
Absolutely.
In everything that I do.
You are the brand. So the fact that you say, I want to live that. So that's an example of inspect what you expect. You expect to be an expert in others. Mm-hmm. So you check yourself, you check in with, people around you. You have mastermind groups you talk to, and you're constantly checking, am I doing that? Or am I just saying that? And there's a big difference and people can see it. They can sniff it out right away. Right.
No. Oh my goodness. So good. So good. We could be on here forever.
I know.
And every time I talk to you, Patrick, you're just so much fun to talk to because first of all, you're a high level thinker, which I absolutely love. And I know my listeners love that as well. So you just have so much expertise, so much experience. And it's so fun to pull that out of you.
Every time I talk to you, I walk away with like 10 new thoughts. So it's probably more than that. So
thank you.
Yeah, I echo what you're saying for sure.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Well, Patrick, how can people so we said they can get your book at your website. We'll put the link with the show notes. Mm-hmm. How else he's on LinkedIn. You can find him on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And how else can they go check out his podcast? Oh my gosh, you're doing so many things, Patrick. So he's got a podcast out there.
Yeah. And honestly, so LinkedIn is a great way to connect. And I talk with everybody who connects with me. Mm-hmm. At my website, everything is all under one roof. So pksolutionsgroup.com. There's a button that takes you right to my podcast. You can listen to any one of and it's myself and my guests looking back for 30 years. It's called Sales Hindsights, but it's expanded beyond sales. It's what people want to hear about in 30 years that we've learned about. And it's a phenomenal resource. You can also, if you want the hardcover book, you can get it there. If you want the audio book, there's links to get it there. If you want to set up time with me, you can get it there. So everything's really at my website or at my LinkedIn profile.
Awesome. When I was on your podcast, Patrick, did we even talk about sales that much? I don't even remember.
I think we did a little bit, but I can tell you that the response I got immediately and the downloads I got from again, you're very approachable, you're very down to earth, and the things that you say apply beyond just your expertise as coaching coaches to higher levels, but it applies to a lot of different professions and individuals and people, and it applies to people coming out of college looking for jobs. So I think you have some really good foundational tenets that you teach that I think come through and everything. Plus, you're an extremely sincere person.
Well, thank you. Well, I wasn't looking for compliments, but hey, bring them on.
I know.
Thank you. No, it was great. I was just trying to remember, when we talked about the name of your podcast, I'm like, I don't even think we talked about sales, but maybe brought it up a bit. But
I have a lot of questions
about sales, to be honest.
I do too. It's near and dear to me, but I spend a lot of time in leadership, and a lot of folks want to employ military tactics and strategies for their leadership. But people want to hear about life. There's one episode that you may want to listen to. It's questions from the listeners. And I had previous guests come on and answer questions from listeners. And it was just phenomenal because the questions they were asking had to do a lot with, life and leadership and conflict resolution and things that weren't sales. So it was a nice little interaction.
You know what would be really fun? So it would be fun for a bunch of us to get together and do like a LinkedIn Live, like an Ask the Expert.
A panel discussion or something. That would be fun.
That would be a blast.
I'm in. Count me in.
I am in too. That could be so much fun. Actually, I was talking to somebody yesterday and we were talking about doing something kind of similar. So maybe I think we'll have to really think about that. That
would be fun.
Several people and make some good connections. And
I think that would be a great thing. I would do it.
Promote it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. We're going to do it. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out a time to do it. So Patrick, it has been such an honor and a pleasure to have you on. And as always, I get so much from you, and I know my listeners are going to love this show. So thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. And, for everyone else, please connect with him. Check out his podcast. It's amazing. Check out his book. I know you'll get so much value from that as well. I mean, if corporations pick up his book and use it as a playbook, it is gold. So go grab that. And until next time, everyone, have an amazing week. Thank you for being here. Make sure you like this, share it, subscribe to the show, and go rock your business. God bless you all. Bye-bye. If you've enjoyed this episode, I want to invite you to go check out a free training that I have at expertinu.us. It is a training that I have on how you can get ultra premium dream clients, scale your business, get more freedom, and really simplify your business and multiply your money. So go check that out. And again, that is expertinu.us. I want to thank you for being here with me this week. I hope you found massive value. Please always leave a comment, feedback, or a question. We check them all. And I want you to go rock your business and make sure you join us again next week. God bless you. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.